everyone, and welcome back to Weather for Weather Geeks. On this Tuesday evening, we've got another major winter storm getting set to paste the area with a mix of snow and sleet and freezing rain. For some of us, it'll be quite a bit of snow. For some of us, not so much because of all the mixing. We're going to break down all the details on the timing, the amounts, and everything else in this video. Before we get to all that, though, some good news. Yeah, it's February 1st. We're into the final month of meteorological winter, and we have now turned the corner when it comes to our daily average temperatures. Our average high bumped up from 34 to 35 on the last couple of days of January, and so as we begin February, we really start to begin that to rise upwards in earnest, and by the end of February, our average high is out of the 30s and into the lower 40s. Not exactly, a heat wave, but it's nice to see our averages going in the right direction after a very long month of January. Of course, the days are getting longer here at this time of the year. We're picking up well over a couple of minutes worth of daylight per day now. We're heading into what we call solar spring in a few days, the 3-month period in which we gain daylight at the fastest rate. Here on the first day of February, 10 hours and 7 minutes of daylight. We've picked up almost an hour since the solstice back on December 21st, and by a month from now, we'll have gained an hour and 10 minutes of daylight. It's really becoming more noticeable, I think, in the evening hours, as it doesn't get totally dark now until after 6 p.m. All right, let's get right to it and talk about the timing of our winter onslaught. First thing we're going to see is rain tomorrow. These will be rain showers pushing in from west to east as we go into the afternoon. During the daylight hours, the snow is out here. Parts of Illinois, northern Indiana, up towards Detroit as well. And that, no surprise, is where the lollipop of heaviest snow overall from the storm is going to be. For us, it stays liquid precipitation well into the evening, and then during the overnight. This is when things change. This is when, in the lowest levels of the atmosphere, the air starts cooling. Now, up above our heads, a few thousand feet, the air will still be near to somewhat above freezing. And that's a recipe when you have above freezing air aloft and below freezing air down here. That's a recipe for some sort of wintry mix, whether it be freezing rain or sleet. On our color table here, freezing rain's depicted in the purple. Sleet is more of the kind of pinkish, peachish color. And as you can see, it seems more likely now that the freezing rain impacts will be highest well off to our south. I think it's going to be more of an issue for areas south of Columbus, south of Zanesville and Cambridge, down towards Athens, Wheeling, Steubenville, places like that. I think we're going to see some freezing rain in parts of our viewing area late Wednesday night, heading into Thursday morning, but I don't think it's likely to be as problematic around here. And yes, I do think there will be some snow already breaking out along and north of the I-80 corridor during the wee hours of Thursday morning. Now, as we get into the daylight hours on Thursday, everything just is here. It's going to be precipitate all day, and the question is, what kind of precipitation? Our model here by late afternoon keeps most of the wintry mix south of our TV viewing area. I still think through the daylight hours, we have a pretty good chance of at least seeing a snow-sleet mix in most areas around and south of I-80. Once you're north of I-80, especially in Trumbull County, you probably have more of a chance of just seeing snow for a lot of the day on Thursday. And as we go into the evening and especially into the overnight hours, this probably becomes just all snow throughout our viewing area, and it tapers off by daybreak at the latest Friday morning. So again, it comes in as rain Wednesday, transitions to a freezing rain, sleet, snow mix, largely snow and sleet during the daylight hours Thursday, with maybe some freezing rain down towards East Liverpool and places like that, and maybe just plain old snow for a lot of Thursday once you're far enough to the north in our TV viewing area. Our concern for power outages and big-time problems with ice, thankfully, has lowered. I showed you this graphic last evening. Some of our models were showing crazy amounts of ice, and I told you I didn't believe it. And sure enough, today, the models are much more reasonable for the most part as far as ice accretion numbers. We have the NAM kind of going nuts here. We're going to ignore that because it's a big outlier. Most of our models are now under a quarter of an inch of ice for most of our viewing area. And, that quarter of an inch is an important amount. I think a lot of us are going to see some trace amounts of ice, even a tenth or so of an inch worth of ice accretion on surfaces. And that can be problematic. That can make bridges slippery. You're going to have to scrape your windshield if you get this much. It can be, a nuisance for sure, and you certainly have to take it seriously, but it's not in the same league as when we start getting ice accretion amounts at or above a quarter of an inch. That's when you're more concerned about widespread power outages and things like that. What about the snow? As the ice expectations have lowered, the snow expectations have started to come up, especially in our northern viewing area. Here's a look at the model spread for kind of the heart of our viewing area. So think of this as kind of the Warren to Youngstown corridor and everywhere kind of surrounding that, kind of right in the middle of our viewing area. Each of these colored lines, an individual model, and the current runs range from right about 5 or 6 inches up to a crazy like 17 inches on the GFS. This is an outlier, and I don't believe it. I actually favor some of the lower amounts, and the reason for that is I think it's foolish a lot of times to underestimate sleet and underestimate the amount of warming that can go on aloft. You underestimate that to your peril sometimes, and I've seen enough circumstances in my 20-plus year career in which the threat from mixing not only materializes in areas you think it will, but it tends to materialize in places that you didn't really think it would be much of an issue. So I'm not going to be surprised if we have prolonged sleet all the way into kind of the southern half of Trumbull and Mercer. And therefore, I don't buy some of these bigger totals. Can't rule it out, but I favor some of the smaller totals. And again, this is for the middle of our viewing area. I think certainly amounts will be lower off to the south. Now, region-wide, the highest snowfall totals, 12 inches or more, common from, about St. Louis to northern suburbs of Indianapolis to Fort Wayne and South Bend, Toledo, Detroit, even the Cleveland area, Sandusky. And then you can see what a tight gradient this is across a lot of the Buckeye State. You go from the southern suburbs of Columbus, say down around Grove City, Ohio, not Pennsylvania, but some of the southern suburbs of Columbus where you might get a couple of inches and a lot more ice, to 45 minutes to an hour north of Columbus getting a foot of snow. And a similar gradient will probably transpire around here as well. That's why this is a pretty difficult snow forecast. I'm not going to beat around the bush here. This is a low confidence first stab at the snowfall accumulations. In fact, I've circled an area on our snow map in which there is the greatest uncertainty. I could see this zone, kind of, again, the middle of our viewing area. I could see where, if for some reason the sleet isn't as prominent and it's much more of a snow event, I could see some higher totals in here than 3 to 6. Conversely, if the storm tracks a little bit farther to the north, the warm air aloft comes a little bit farther to the north, I could see where we get kind of this 1 to 3 zone that's kind of confined to southeastern Columbiana. I could see it coming fairly far to the north. I could see either solution at this point. It's a tough call. It's a tight gradient. You're going to want to check the forecast often over the next 24 hours, as no doubt we will get a better handle on how this will play out. But again, as I've been preaching all week, don't get too caught up in the numbers. It's all high impact, no matter what the amount is. Whether it's a lot of ice and a little snow, or a lot of snow and a little ice, plan on a lot of impacts. I'm going to debut a new graphic here this evening. This is what we call a box and whisker plot, showing our forecasted snow totals and then kind of the outer bands of the ranges of possibilities. So in other words, our official forecast for Youngstown right now, 3 to 6. Here's the legend down here at the bottom. Our official forecast is 3 to 6. The kind of bust scenario, maybe the lowest end I could see is probably about an inch. And the highest end, again, less sleet, maybe around Youngstown we get up to 9 inches or so. Those are the unlikeliest scenarios right now, but it's at the far end of the ranges of possibilities, something that can't totally be ruled out. Same idea, Warren. Right now our official forecast up in Warren is 6 to 9 from Warren on north in Trumbull County. But more sleet, you may only get a couple of inches. That's an outside possibility, but it's at the end of the range of possibilities there. And on the other side of the coin, yeah, a foot or more, I can't rule that out in parts of Trumbull County, especially if we do see less sleet and more heavy snow. Down in East Liverpool, southeastern Columbiana, I could see where snowfall totals are almost nothing down there. It's not our forecast, but I'm not going to be shocked by that. Our forecast is for 1 to 3. And if we do see a little more snow and a little less sleet, especially late Thursday night when the air mass really cools, I could see where we, down towards East Liverpool, get 3 or 4 inches pretty easily. But again, that's not the most likely scenario at this point. Stay tuned. Tough forecasts. Right now, things will get a little easier theoretically over the next 24 hours. We're going to be in the deep freeze on Friday night, Saturday night, but then we get above freezing by Sunday afternoon. And while this is by no means warm early next week, we're not going to be in the teens and 20s for days on end, like the pattern that we saw for a lot of January. Last evening I talked about the February forecast. Plenty of cold in February. There'll be more wintry opportunities, but the flavor of February should be different overall than a pretty tough month of January. All right, long enough video for me tonight. Thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for watching Weather for Weather Geeks. I'll have an update on social media a few more times this evening and tonight on 21 News at 11 p.m. I hope you will join us then.